Hey everyone, I'm Superfizz, and today is, what is today? February 14th. It's Valentine's Day, 2022, and I'm here with my good friend Ben Edgington.
Hey, happy Valentine's Day, dude.
Yeah, my goal for the day is to not be in front of screens and to spend time with family. And I guess you're my family today, Ben.
Hey, fam. Yeah, indeed. And so let's keep it tight and we can all go and be with our loved ones.
Awesome. Yes. So I felt very good about what we did last week. And so I think we'll just zip through it. But before we begin, I have to acknowledge that um, this naming. Let's see. I'm gonna move my. I like to see you when I chat with you. There we go. Oh, that doesn't work. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here. Okay. So the naming convention thing is something that pops up. As a matter of fact, when I posted what's new in ETH2 on ETHStaker Reddit this week, there was like backlash, like that's not correct. And my response is Ben knows what he's doing. He has a wealth of information and I love learning from him. So if he wants to call it ETH2, if he wants to call it ETH37, I don't care because I'm evaluating your whole corpus of information. And if it's valuable to me, then I accept it. And it doesn't matter so much to me if you choose a different naming convention. But for everyone's benefit, can you talk to us a little more about this this stand that you've taken?
All right, let's do it. Yeah, and be nice to me, please, because I've just come out of a 2-hour workshop with Dankrad and Vitalik on dank sharding, and my head is spinning.
That's this morning. Yeah, I missed that, but how was that? Let's do that next, I guess.
Yeah, it was heavy, but we'll come to that. On naming, so I have this Ethereum 2 thing in my mind. And Ethereum 2 has been a thing since 2014. Vitalik first called it that. It was to be a big cryptographic upgrade to Ethereum. Proof of stake came in under that banner, lots of scalability and stuff. ETH2 has never been a specific deliverable. There's never been a thing we've said, this is Ethereum 2, we're going to deliver it. The concept's always been a big upgrade to Ethereum. What are we doing? We're doing a big upgrade to Ethereum. So I call it Ethereum 2. The Ethereum Foundation has come in and said, oh, we don't do that anymore. And that really annoys me, right? I mean, so my main objection, number one on the list, is just kind of a high-handed way this has been done, right? The Ethereum Foundation has just come along. They said, oh, devs don't call it that anymore. Patently not true. And we're deprecating the naming. Well, I mean, that's not how things work in this ecosystem. No consultation was done, no community engagement, nothing. It was just like, we're not doing that anymore. So that immediately riles me. I'm going to stand up for permissionlessness in this context, of all things. So as the purveyor of what's new in ETH2, you're going to have to do better than that to change my mind. And
I want to share a contrast to that is my observation is it has been a very slow and deliberate shift toward the consensus and execution layer language. I didn't feel as if it were imposed upon me, but I do see ETH2 as being a large set of global upgrades, not just the merge. And so many people equate ETH2 to the merge. I can see how that can be confusing.
Right. And, it's not a clearly formed concept in my mind. If you ask me, define what ETH2 is, I can't tell you it's X, Y, and Z. It's a big future upgrade to Ethereum. And just to be clear, I don't object at all to the consensus layer and the execution layer naming, except they're kind of cumbersome. But, from a technical point of view, it's a nice distinction. And it's more precise than ETH1 and ETH2 clients, though I always go back to that in my own mind, because somebody says execution layer, I have to do a few milliseconds of processing to, oh yeah, he's talking about the ETH1 client or whatever. But that's a technical accuracy issue, and I don't really have a problem with that. They're not pretty terms, but that's okay. But as a general concept of what we're doing, I like Ethereum 2. It deserves a big upgrade naming, because we are doing the largest upgrade that's ever been done on Ethereum. And I think it is different. You know, Ethereum on proof of stake, Ethereum with all the innovations that we're bringing is different from Ethereum that we've had. So that's my thing.
Yeah.
And I'll keep on plugging away. And if people
Can I
often,
prod you on something?
go on.
So I like I was just testing my screen share, but I do want to, this is, screw it, we'll leave it for now. I get ETH2 as the future of Ethereum. And I would actually be I would be cool if we said future projects are ETH2. So that, you know, sharding can be ETH2. That fits into that paradigm. My question is, after the merge, would you then refer to the merge chain as an ETH1 chain and an ETH2 chain, or would you then refer to the merge as Ethereum and future projects as ETH2?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and I don't have a clear answer. I'd say we're in the ETH2 era, the Ethereum 2 era at that point, and there's a whole bunch of deliverables that kind of go into that. And then at some stage we'll talk about Ethereum 3, and we'll sort of move up the versioning tree. And you know, some people have we have this happy banter on Twitter, and you know, Proto Lambda sort of has made a what's new in consensus layer a site which kind of mirrors this, and that I bridle a little at that, because I'm not writing about the consensus layer. That's not my constraint. My vision is the whole thing. It's the scalability, it's the proof of stake, it's the whole enabling of the future of Ethereum, and it always has been. It just happens that the proof of stake is the thing that we're delivering first, and that's kind of dominated in the narrative. But if you look back through the history of what's new in ETH2, it's always been about more than the beacon chain and the upgrade. It's about the big picture.
Okay, so that was going to be my last question, but I have one more. If you view what's new in ETH2 as, and I hope that you understand, my questions are intended to poke you. I am deeply aligned with you, and we click really well. This is truly about understanding. If what's new in ETH2 is what you would consider a kind of global Ethereum newsletter, then how would you? It's certainly a different newsletter, and I don't consider it a competing newsletter to Evan and Andrew's newsletter, but it's certainly more future oriented. Are you more focused on the future, where do you feel like they're more focused on the current?
I'm focused on things that interest me, which is much more limited set of things than goes into Week in Ethereum, basically protocol. So the protocol innovations and the future of where the Ethereum layer 1 protocol, as it were, is going. I really don't have the bandwidth or capacity to talk about rollups and application level stuff and all of that. I should just say a quick word on the branding. I mean, so what's new in ETH2? So an interesting experiment was inadvertently done a while back when Week in Ethereum cheekily rebranded it what's new in consensus layer, and my readership dropped by half, right? Because the name recognition out there is for Ethereum 2, and I would much rather reach people with good information under a slightly wonky brand than not reach them at all. And there's a danger if we just say, oh, this is Ethereum, and then people, if there isn't a brand around it, then people are not finding good information out there. And so I feel that by deprecating the Ethereum 2 naming, we're really missing a trick. It's always been filled with different content for the last 8 years. It's had different content every few months. But now just to say, oh, we're not doing Ethereum 2 anymore, I think is missing a trick here from a branding, marketing, reaching people, communication, more importantly, point of view.
My honest perception is that people are discounting the content when they see ETH2 because of the hot button issue, and they automatically assume that you are on a fringe. And obviously I follow you closely. I recognize you're not on the fringe, but I do sense that people see that as a dated kind of fringe topic that they don't align with like they might have in the past. So that's just food for thought. And
Interesting.
I support you no matter what you put out. So. That's not true,
Yeah.
actually. I'm picky, but I'm just okay with that one.
Fizz, I don't know how long I'm going to be writing this thing for. It's been 3.5 years getting on for now, and at some point it will just come to a natural end. Maybe after the merge, I'll just like shelve it and say enough, and then that will save the whole rebranding thing. So
yeah, I hope you don't end it. I don't care what you call it, but it is definitely one of those things that I drop everything for every week. And it's not that I investigate everything deeply, but I feel like at a high level, it helps me. I miss things, and I'm sure you do too. Like you're like, I didn't know that happened. And so it's one of those valuable catch-ups. So yeah. Anyway, that's a chat people wanted to hear. I was curious about it, and I'm sure it will come up again, but yeah, thanks for talking about it. Let's see. So I did some highlighting here. People asked me to share the screen, and I thought that was valuable. So as we go through, I will be opening some links and just sort of trying to follow along visually for people who are watching. My assumption is most people are going to listen to this while they're driving or whatever, but you never know. Let's see. We did this last week. So yeah, I put out a call. This is actually based on a conversation that I had with some folks from what is now Coinbase Cloud, which I used to know as Bison Trails, where they said, we need data-driven analysis. Our clients need data-driven analysis. And so if you give us that data, we will put it in front of our clients and help them make more informed decisions about client diversity. And so I hope people still take me up on that call. I've actually begun issuing a POAP that I think is gorgeous. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Yes, I need to find it. And I would go to, hold on. I don't remember the damn name of it. Okay, anyway, I'll find it later. But I am issuing a POAP now. Ben has, oh, that's how we find it. We go to a, sorry. I'm just so proud of the design. I'm issuing a POAP to people who make significant contributions to ETH2 client diversity. And I really want anyone who, so if you've made a significant contribution, reach out, let people know that, hey, I think I should have gotten that POAP. I would love to get this to anyone who has made significant contributions. And there are a bunch of people. I love the design of this POAP. It kind of speaks to the research angle of contributing to client diversity, which I think is so valuable.
That is a top POAP. That is great. And I am a proud possessor of that POAP. So thank you very much.
Yes, I'm so glad to share it with you.
I did found the client, so I think
that's always an interesting thing.
Doing my bit for diversity.
It is. I recognize that you're in that unusual spot where you're on one hand a client owner, and on the other hand, you're also supporting this thing that is good for the health of the network. In my honest. I would like to believe that if Teku were the majority client, the super majority client, that we would have very, very similar discussions, because this isn't about winning, it's about true diversity.
Absolutely. Are you happy with the responses you're getting to your client diversity, the paper writing initiative?
Well, so Joseph Cook wrote the first one, and so far it's the only submission, and I'm literally obsessed with it. I didn't know Joseph Cook before this. I know he's a core dev apprentice, but the quality of his paper, and it's linked here, I hope everyone checks it out. The quality of his paper is just so, do you know what it is? It speaks to my level. Like I can read it as a as a normal Ethereum user without feeling overwhelmed. I understood everything in this. There weren't topics where I'm like, that's a little above my head, I'm going to skip over it. So I felt like it was just so well written, and I do hope to get more submissions. One of the other, not a paper, but another submission I got, and I think we'll talk about this eventually too, is Invisible Symbols website, pools.aviz.cloud, but we might catch that later in the chat.
Yeah, that I saw at the weekend. It didn't make it in time for this edition, I think, but this is good.
Yeah, sure, and we'll catch up on that. But yes, I am satisfied with if that's the only submission. I'm satisfied. I'm content. I would love to see more. I am all about building on success. So yeah. This merge readiness checklist, I know you've been involved with this at some level. What are we looking for here?
Yeah, so I think the really cool thing about this is that at the top of the list, which is this kind of work that needs to be done, the prep work, the client development, the spec writing, and the kind of spade work on that, basically all done. There are a few empty checkboxes there, but they are either nice to haves or not particularly difficult. There's no blocker whatsoever in terms of the technology or the client implementations to doing the merge. All of the empty boxes are down the bottom half, and they're all testing. So it's just testing. And that's it between now and merge. That's all we've got left, which is astonishing, absolutely astonishing place to be.
It really is. I think about this. The thing that stuck in my mind most was the slog for figuring out SSZ, because I listened to those talks for like weeks, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And to look back at that and then compare it with where we are now, it's just such a wild contrast. Like we're almost there.
Yeah, bike shedding about serialization for 6 months. Yeah, I revisited that for my my book chapter on SSZ, which is mentioned a bit further down recently. So if you want to relive the saga, you can read that.
Maybe I'll understand it the second time around. So Kintsugi, and we know Kintsugi is sunsetting. It's not too late to join. I've been in some chats with an interest in getting a POAP for that, because I feel like it's the first public test net for the merge, and it's kind of a neat thing. But as it sunsets, this is the biggest takeaway from me. Don't spec your hardware based on the happy flow. Be prepared for increased resource usage during times of non-finality.
Yeah, we've seen that before as well on testnets with just beacon nodes. And when the chain is not finalizing, when it's under stress, typically there will be several forks, and clients have to maintain data on all of the forks. They can't sort of finalize it, then prune it all away. That blows up your memory usage, it blows up your disk usage, it blows up your CPU usage. Hopefully, we will never see this. We've never seen it on the live beacon chain. We've only ever seen non-finalization on testnets. But if we do end up in a situation of non-finality due to a client bug or something, then if you're on minimal spec hardware, you're really going to struggle, and you will get penalized for being offline during that period. This is the leak, the quadratic leak process. So Raspberry Pis and all of that are very cool indeed, and it's amazing. It's incredible that the whole system can run on a Raspberry Pi, but that's a happy flow, and ideally, in a perfect world, that's how it will always be. But just be aware that that things do blow up when it gets turbulent.
Yeah, and so I remember Vitalik's original promise of the beacon chain was run. Is it a talk? I want to say it was. I'm not sure, but his talk was, you're going to be able to run it on a laptop, and you're not going to worry if you shut it down sometimes or if you start it back up, because as long as you're online 2/3 of the time, everything is fine. And that obviously matured to the point where, yes, you could run it on laptop hardware, but we really want you to use, a dedicated machine. And yes, you only have to be online 2/3 of the time. You're probably going to want to be online as much as you can be. But, a lot of my friends are running Raspberry Pis. I think of, there's this this clique that enjoys running on minimal hardware. Do you think, is it a poor choice or is it acceptable given the breadth of the network?
It's a personal choice. I mean, if you know the risks and you take that into account, then that's fine. You know, if you're prepared to transfer your validators to a beefier piece of kit, if there's a problem in the network or whatever, if you're confident with that, then you know it's no big deal. And you know, you're doing the planet a favor by running it on low spec hardware, and that's all good. But I don't want people who are naively assuming that, you know, oh, this, you know, this $50 bit of kit or whatever is going to be fine for the next 3 years or what, for production, just because it probably won't. So.
No, that's very fair. And I'm the same. I don't want to discourage people from trying those things, but I also, like, personally, I use more powerful hardware because I was involved, not involved, but I was an observer of the Medasha non-finality incident. And you know, you had to have horsepower to grind through that. But I still agree, people can be okay if there's a non-finality issue, they will experience quadratic leakage. They're not likely to be pruned, and as soon as things are back online, they'll begin recovering. I guess we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Yep. Yeah, and on Kintsugi, it'll be running for 2-3 more weeks while we get our ducks in a row for Kiln. We've got a couple of dev nets to run for Kiln before we make that the new public mainnet. And the reason we're replacing Kintsugi is there's been a bit of a spec upgrade, not backwards compatible. The idea is that Kiln is the final spec. This is the sort of frozen version, and it's the last test net before we start forking like Ropsten or Rinkeby or whatever the ETH1 test nets are, and forking them to proof of stake.
And fairly, it's the hopeful final client, right? Because we could always end up scrubbing Kiln and trying again, but it will be a great sign of progress if the spec is frozen, Kiln is successful. It will be a tremendous green light for moving forward, right?
Yeah, totally. Yep.
So EthSticker made a video about joining Kintsugi with Teku and Besu. We'll do the same when it comes to Kiln. And as well, I haven't seen this, but can you tell me about this one?
Yeah, we did a consensus webinar on joining Kintsugi with Teku and Besu. So Adrian Sutton is there, as is Gary Schulte, and I pop up to do some Q&A. So I mean, just a word on Besu. It's not a well-known ETH1 client, execution client, but and to be fair, has been focused more on the enterprise side of stuff, on the private network sort of things for its first couple of years of its life. But we are now focusing it very heavily on mainnet support. We've got an incredible team around it, lots of resources, really making it a first-class mainnet client. So there are new features like bonsai trees, which reduce the disk footprint, and it's auto pruning. It's by its very nature, by design, it's self pruning. So you don't have this thing like with Geth where you have to take it offline every few months to prune the database if you're running out of disk space. With Besu, it automatically prunes itself as it goes. Just putting in SnapSync and all the final sort of ETH1 features, but in the client diversity conversation goes beyond your consensus layer client. You know, it's important, it's equally critical we have that diversity in the execution layer clients. Geth is the one that everybody reaches for naturally, and I fully understand why, but here is an opportunity to diversify on you know, Nethermind or Besu or one of the others.
Just to clarify my understanding, Besu is now a consensus product? Is that right?
Always has been. So
Okay.
I was in the very first sprint planning meetings back in early 2018. I think we started, maybe late 2017. We started the Besu project. It was called Pantheon for a while. I mean, when we started it, it was called New Client. It's always been mainnet compatible, but the focus of engineering resource has been more, I think it's fair to say, on the private network side. We've always maintained mainnet compatibility, but now the emphasis has shifted right back. I mean, for the last 6 to 9 months, or maybe longer than that, actually. Tim Baker was product owner of Besu for a while. So if you need some pedigree, you know, he ran it for a year or so. And under him and successors, it's being very huge emphasis being put on excellent first-class mainnet support.
It took me a long time to really integrate Besu into my awareness, because it was Hyperledger Besu for the longest time, right? And
Yeah, still is.
okay,
So
it
it's a
seemed
member of
like
the.
it seemed foreign to me, I guess, for some reason.
Mm.
And I think now I'm coming around to being more willing to promote it. And speaking of Reddit comments, there was a Reddit comment this week, like, why is there so much talk about consensus layer diversity and not as much talk about execution layer diversity? And I'm like, that's probably because some of us have been screaming at the top of our lungs about consensus layer diversity, but it doesn't make execution layer diversity any less important. So for my part anyway, I feel like I can focus on one big goal. If I diverge and focus on both goals, I'm not sure that I'll ever be a part of achieving both. But I do recognize the importance of execution layer diversity as well.
Yeah, well, that battle to fight when it comes.
Yeah,
it's gonna be an interesting one.
Speaking of hardware spec, like Raspberry Pi, I love what Ethereum on ARM is doing. I imagine you're also a fan.
They are incredible. I mean, the engineering brilliance there is superb. We have done a couple of things to make sure that Teku is kind of ARM compatible in terms of our dependencies and so forth, but they've really done all the hard work on their side, and the stuff they're able to pack into those little things is incredible. Yep.
Do we know who that is or who they're associated with? Like, I recognize them from Twitter, but I don't. It doesn't cross my mind who it is.
Don't know. Yep.
Yep, that's fine. And we've chatted a bit about Kiln. Kiln Spec 1 is out, and we have another progress tracker for Kiln. I love
following the emoji format. Yeah, so we have the fire brick for Kiln. And yeah, people are making progress. We can't go beyond M1. So M is a milestone. So we've got like 6 milestones there. I can't remember exactly what they all correspond to, but milestone 2 is implementing the V2 spec, and the V2 spec isn't out yet. So we basically know what's in it, but the detail isn't final. So everyone's just paused on milestone 1 for now, and then yeah, by the time we get to milestone 6, that's the full gamut of test cases done.
And this, I guess, when V2 of the spec is released, this could actually move fairly quickly. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. Don't see why not.
Very exciting. I see stuff about the engine API. I have questions about that, but we'll probably catch that some other time or later, whatever. Kiln testnet. Looking for Kiln to open up to everyone in a few weeks.
In a few weeks, yeah. I've been vague about that.
We'll it's hard, right? Yeah, and my intention is never to ask about timelines, but my guess that would be early March. That seems fair to everyone.
Yeah, sounds about right. I mean, so client teams need to get the configurations in and make it easy for people to configure.
Yeah, and that configuration is so valuable because as end users, I'm not a developer. I can use Linux. I understand the clients well, but I still look for easy setup, easy configuration, and that's what it's easy to share with the masses. And so the more refined that is, the more people we can involve in testing.
Yeah, it's much easier if you've got a minus kintsugi or minus kiln flag on it. So we try
Yes.
to do that just to just to make it take one barrier out of the way. It's hard enough as it is.
So the next thing is beyond the merge. My real comment. Do you have thoughts here?
Yeah, I sort of, so in terms of sections that I put in, I sort of think of random titles just as stuff comes in. So I collect all the things that are incoming during the couple of weeks, and then I sort of try and arrange them into loosely related categories, and then stick them under a title. So this is a kind of random collection of stuff which is coming up both on the execution side and on the consensus side. I just wanted to note that we're starting to look towards what they're calling on the ETH1 side Shanghai, or that may change the name. So that's the fork or upgrade, if you prefer, due towards the end of this year. So maybe 6 months post-merge. And all timings to be treated with suitable skepticism. And we will likely do a simultaneous beacon chain upgrade at that point, if only to enable withdrawals. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's a sort of table stakes for that upgrade. But there are a couple of other things we might look at on the consensus side, which, I just, the Vitalik's blob transactions thing, I've just been listening to an hour on that, and I think I need to go back and watch it again.
At 0.5. Do you do that? Maybe it's just me.
It's kind of a step towards dank sharding, which is another topic. So dank sharding is kind of fully sharded data availability. Vitalik's blob transactions are a step that is iterative. It builds on our current infrastructure without introducing a huge new networking infrastructure, for example, and gives us the benefit of some data availability boost for rollups, basically. So it's a sort of halfway house. It's a step in the right direction that gives us some very quick benefits without too much disruption, while we work on the sort of the full dank sharding thing in the longer term.
We spend a lot of our time in the weeds, but I think the message that people who don't get the big picture need to take away is Ethereum traffic will move to layer 2. And all of this preparation, all of this organization, dank sharding, blob transactions are being set up so that layer 2 can handle immense capacity and settle on the main chain. And I'm not sure that's completely evident to everyone, but it is something that's what all of this discussion is about.
Yeah. So we've said from early days that Ethereum will be the settlement layer for the planet. This is what it looks like, people. It's chains that sit on Ethereum, and Ethereum settles it. It's the high court. But the chains that sit on it, the rollups, as we've the vision has come into focus. 3, 4, 5 years ago, we knew it would look like this, but we didn't quite know what the technology would be in detail. Now we know it looks like rollups, ZK rollups, optimistic rollups. That's where all the user activity will be, and the Ethereum is the final arbiter, and people will not be transacting. Individuals will not be transacting on the Ethereum base layer in years to come, unless they are whales. Because
it's so hard for me to hear that. I'm not a whale, but I've been transacting on main chain for so long. Like, I can't imagine a future where I wouldn't be transacting on main chain. And I know that's sorry, having 2-year-old or 3-year-old issues. I know that is the future, but it seems so. I'm like, I'm gonna do it on main chain. Like, that's just what I know.
Yeah, I know. I feel exactly the same way. I haven't chosen my layer 2 yet. I mean, all my assets pretty much are still on layer 1. At some point, before the gas prices prevent it need to move to a layer 2, we all will need to do that. But the kind of the candidate, the one that I want to sit on, hasn't emerged for me yet. So I don't know.
I have as an exercise, I sort of send an ETH to each of the new chains. Like I want something there just to have my foot in the door. But other than Gnosis or XDAI, which is technically it's maybe a slightly different beast, or Matic Polygon, those are the two solutions that I actually do things on. But when it comes to Optimism, Arbitrum, I haven't really felt motivated to act on those chains yet.
Yeah, and interestingly, those are the two which are not rollups. They're the sidechain solutions, and I guess they're ahead, right? Because there wasn't any really new technology there. It's just speeded up older technology, whereas the rollups are implementing from scratch a new technology. So it takes longer. ZK Sync's looking interesting. Lots going on there. So
yeah, definitely looking forward to interacting more with ZK.
To be honest, it's Layer 2 2022. Here we go.
I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like, but I know it's something that I'm supposed to be excited about, if that makes any sense.
Totally. Yeah.
Speaking of the call, I think this is call 81. The thing that struck me most about that consensus layer call was the focus on post-merge. And that gives me the feeling that, whether it's accurate or not, it gives me the feeling that the merge is more or less buttoned up and that we're already ready to shift focus to what's after that. How fair is that?
Yeah, so we talked about that was the last 10 to 15 minutes. And I wasn't the very first time we talked about that, but yeah, certainly eyes are starting to look beyond the merge seriously for perhaps the first time, and it is a bit of a treadmill, dude. You never quite get there. It's sort of always another thing. So right, we get this incredible effort for the merge, but we can't kind of put our feet up. We got the next thing to do, then the next thing and the next thing, but keeps it real, keeps it exciting. So Yep.
Yeah.
And people like Vitalik and Dankrad and Justin and the Ethereum Foundation researchers are not looking one step beyond. They're looking 2, 3, 4 steps beyond, and into a future that's kind of years long.
Well, by the time it's reached implementation, the research has been settled, and they're no longer worried about that because they are able to focus on the big picture.
Right.
And I guess as users, we're sort of stuck in the middle between catching up on 2-year-old research and observing the current implementation. So, yeah. We did chat about client diversity on the execution layer, and it is important that we continue to encourage people to use other execution clients than Geth. I plan to spend more time with Besu. I've been moving toward that. But I just wanted to point that out one more time. Ethereum pools, loving this Twitter.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yes. I don't think I've seen it this week, but any takeaways?
It's amazing level of detail, and it's so I think we'll come on to this a bit with Rated as well. Transparency. I think one of the keys to making this space work is transparency, and then people can make good choices about where they put their stake, or how the network, which clients they run, and so on and so forth. And I'm impressed with the level of due diligence that Ethereum Pools has done, the amount of data and identification of the players and so forth. Just the detail is incredible.
Yeah, I share the same. I was skeptical at first because you see, someone you hadn't recognized, you don't know who they are, but they begin dropping this data. And so you're only left with data. You're not left with, someone's background or credibility. And just looking at it, it's such high quality data. They are spotting things that I probably would never have known about if it weren't for them sharing it.
Yeah, fabulous. And I occasionally do a little bit of digging myself, and have my own dashboards and stuff. I don't spend a lot of time nurturing them, but the data that I'm seeing from Ethereum Pools matches what I'm seeing on my dashboard. So I'm convinced it's credible, it's accurate and reliable. So absolutely great.
Yeah, now is when I probably want to pump this pools.invis.cloud, because it's the same kind of network monitoring who's doing what. And I know that it didn't make your newsletter. It was probably released a little bit after that. But I'm feeling really optimistic about this, I guess, data collection report style. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Again, transparency. I mean, terrific. Yeah, surfacing the information, gathering it, surfacing it. It's all there. I mean, you don't have to have secret insider knowledge to build this stuff. It's a lot of it's on chain, and or available through analysis like Michael Sproul's analysis, which I gather is mashed up with this this data, and yeah, this is super helpful. This is really, really good. But you get to see who are running the mono cultures. Yeah.
It was most exciting to me because, I had been tracking Michael Sproul's data, and we knew, like, we've got, Prism has a super majority. We've got to get it down. And so I kept pushing on home users, like, come on, guys, like, hey, everyone, if you're running a solo validator, you got to switch over. We got to do the fight. And then I started seeing OX Invises, or invisible symbols, where data that he had linked proposals to operators, and putting them in a room together. They both just clicked their data, and now we have a much better view of where those proposals are coming from. And it's not people at home. People at home generally have decent diversity. It is these huge providers that maybe need a good solid push to make better choices.
I have some optimism from professional conversations that things will change over the next months, but yeah, I think you made the point last time we spoke. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. When we see these numbers change, that's when we can start to relax a little.
Yeah, I'm hearing the same kind of I guess the calming phrase that I get is, you're going to see big changes around the March timeframe, and it's hard for me to take that in stride, because that's a way of saying, don't worry about it. It's going to take care of itself. And then we let our guard down, and March passes and nothing has changed. And we're that much closer to the merge. And the merge isn't the most important thing for client diversity, but it is a big kind of stepping stone. And I don't want to let our guard down until we've really solved it.
Yeah. And, if the beacon chain stops today or has an incident or whatever, then the only people really affected are stakers, and stakers know what they're getting into. At least they ought to do, right? I mean, there's a lot of value staked, but it's not running DeFi, right? Whereas if after the merge, if the beacon chain gets into trouble, then it's chaos. I mean, chaos for everybody, exchanges and DeFi apps, and everybody who relies on the chain. Yeah, NFTs and everything goes crazy. Yeah. So it's a much bigger deal. So for now, we're still sort of sandboxed, but yeah.
I was horrified when we actually saw real life slashings on the mainnet. I think Anchor had like 175 validators slashed like very early on.
I think that was stake.us.
Oh yes, that's right. I apologize. So they both had fairly large slashings, and I was horrified. But I'm happy those have happened, because it's sort of given everyone the realization that slashing is real. Like, it's going to happen. It's not like an invisible stick, or a fake stick. It's really going to happen. And so no one really gets to come back and be angry when it happens to them, because it was never held. It was never a secret.
Right. Yeah. I think that was. I mean, they made good, the stakers, so which was the right thing to do. But absolutely, it was a wake up call.
I didn't check out Rated.
That link is broken.
Is that let's check it. Oh,
20 minutes before I published, it was live. But a footnote down the bottom, there is a Twitter thread there, which goes through everything. I was hoping that link would spring to life again. I don't know what happened to it. So yeah, so this is from Elias, who I'm not sure if he's still with Bison Trails or Coinbase Cloud as it is now, but used to be. But and one of his colleagues, who, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Who have made a dashboard. So I linked through to the dashboard, or it might be linked here separately. So if you scroll back up again to there, if you go to the front end there.
I do like doing this with screen share better, by the way. Yes, okay.
So what they've got here is the deposit address of on the left-hand column of validators. And then some stats about the performance based on heuristics around the attestation performance. And you can click on the deposit address and see sometimes they share. So you can see that's Kraken. And you can see the performance of all the Kraken validators under that one. And you can compare between the different pools that have deposited from the same address.
This makes me a little curious. Did I close? Oh, okay. So this says Kraken has 30,649, and this one says 30. Oh, wow. That is, so it's good when those correlate. So I'm happy about that.
And, it does depend on deposit address, and, not all pools use one address and so on and so on. But yeah, UI needs a little bit of work. It'd be nice to be able to sort or filter. I couldn't get search working and things, but as a concept, as a first step, this is another dimension of transparency. You can compare the actual performance of relative performance of the various pools, and you can take your own validators fleet and compare it with the others as well to see how you're doing.
My favorite thing about tools like this is many end users may not see a purpose for this, but others will see this and think, I could do something like this, only change this and that. And then this has become either a building block or a stepping stone to something that other people can use. And as you mentioned, the UI improvements here could really, if this showed who the operator was, it could really benefit.
Yep. And Elias and friends are very keen to make this a community effort. I mean, they've kind of done the first step of building the initial database, but they want, the vision is to gather data from stakers, everywhere, to add to the the base of data available here and make it much richer and more useful.
Well, I love it. So yeah, I chatted a little bit about DVT, that's OBOL and SSV versus Rocket Pool and Lido. Reddit, I don't know if it's just Reddit, but they have this idea that those are competing products, and I just don't see
No.
DVT and trustless staking pools, or I guess that would be the right way to describe them, as competitors.
Agreed. One is infrastructure. I mean, the distributed validator stuff's infrastructure, and you can build many different protocols on it.
And I know I saw down here Aditya is going to talk about that at ETH Denver. Kind of excited about that.
There are a couple of talks about the distributed validators, I think.
Can I make a confession? I haven't read it yet. Does that make me a terrible friend?
Well, there isn't too much there yet. So the links in blue are the bits I've done, and the links in black are the bits I've got to do, which vastly outweigh the bits I've done. But just plowing through, chugging away at writing the book.
What are your long-term plans for this?
Well, if you go up to the preface, so on the left, if you go preface rather, yep. So the plan is as follows. So the bullet points there. You
mean I could read the book to find out the answer to the question I'm asking?
Indeed. So basically, what I want to do is have frozen editions which reflect at a point in time the reality that then prevailed. So I'm currently writing Altair. This is the Altair edition, and the spec is the Altair spec, and so on. and I'm writing it post facto. We've delivered Altair. I'm not writing about things that are going to happen. It's too much
Yeah.
of a moving target. I'd have to re-edit it every day. So when the merge happens, then Altair version will be frozen. That will be the Altair edition, and then I'll start work on the merge edition, which hopefully won't be a massive lift. It will, be a few more chapters and a bit of re-editing and whatever. But at some point, I'll catch up. Now, I'm not going to get the whole of Altair written up by the merge. I've got to narrow the scope somewhat, but I'm going to have a good stab at getting most of part 2 and part 3 is done. So basically, most of part 2, all of part 2 done by Altair.
I should invest more time in reading this. These summaries help me. I have a Swiss cheese understanding, and these summaries help me kind of fill in those holes. So
yeah, I mean, I'm writing the kind of book that I'd like to read, and it may not be, maybe I'm the only person in the world who'd want to read it, but I've had some nice feedback, and I found it very useful to be able to refer people to it in conversation and say, hey, actually, I've written something about this,
Yeah, I would love to see it eventually as an NFT. Trent did that.
Yeah.
The NFT book. I found that really interesting. I'm sure it was a ton of work, but it was very cool.
Yeah, that's not really my world. I'll need some help with that, but yeah, let's talk about it.
And I don't know AtHeart Engineer, but
just somebody who popped up on Twitter very helpfully just gave me a style sheet which made it usable on mobile. I learned all my CSS in 2003. I'm not even joking. Pre-mobile, so I'm clueless about at media queries. So there we go.
Yeah. So research. This is Balancing Attack LMD edition. And do you want to summarize? Because I get LMD Ghost, but I couldn't summarize.
Yeah. So this is sort of a long line, another in a sort of long series of articles from the same researchers who have been looking at the consensus protocol we use in ETH2, which is a combination of LMD Ghost and Casper FFG. It's kind of a bit Frankenstein, it's bolted together. It's sometimes called Gasper. And they have been looking at different ways to attack it. And, their very first attack they came out with was sort of so infeasible, it was not really worrying at all. But over a few iterations, they refined it to become much more effective. So we responded in protocol by introducing something called proposer weight boosting. And they've come back with a new attack, which even with proposer weight boosting means that an attacker who's got some power, say 20% of validators, and some quite strong power over the network, so they can organize things so half the network sees one thing first and half the network sees another thing first. They can partition the network so it never finalizes. You're just swapping between two parallel chains. You've balanced the votes in LMD, and you can keep that up indefinitely if you maintain your power over the network. And this is again back to the theoretical but very infeasible to pull off in practice attacks. And it turns out there's a really super simple way to defeat it in protocol, which we should have done already. I mean, and I noted here, you just have to stop. If you see two different votes from a validator, you just ignore both of them rather than counting the first one. So it's easy to defeat, but it does kind of make me wonder what's next. I mean, it's sort of they keep coming back. You whack one of these and think you fixed it, and then they come back with another. So I'm super glad they're looking at this.
It always brings me back to decentralization. I know it's my obsession, but with a thoroughly decentralized network, it makes it really difficult for any party to have an inordinate amount of control. Whether that is a client, like say Prism couldn't have control over the network if they had a minority client, if we were all at 30%. Whether it's geography, like a nation state actor couldn't take control over the network if we're spread thinly around the world. an operating system vulnerability. If someone was able to hack, Windows systems or Linux systems, if they were sufficiently decentralized across all of these factors, then it really increases the robustness of the network, and that's kind of my obsession.
Yeah, absolutely, and it applies to layer 0 as well, the people involved. And so, here we have, I presume, academic researchers. I don't actually know, but they, it's an open protocol. We are transparent. It's published. It's out there. Anyone can come and look at it and publish their work, and we talk about it openly. And as all part of the permissionless, decentralized, transparent ethos that we have. So I think it's an enormous strength of Ethereum as a system, as an ecosystem, and as a community.
Thank you. Yeah, we did talk about Call 81.
Yes, sir.
I missed. So I saw you were on this call, the merge community call. That's when my headphones went out, and I literally spent 57 minutes trying to get my stupid headphones working. And yeah, I caught that like the last 3 minutes. But apparently there was a lot of really interesting, not new, but confirming information out of that.
Yeah.
Is that what your sense?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't see the first two calls. I haven't read the notes. This one was, there was good information, but it was a bit ad hoc. So, you need to sort of look at it all. I mean, not everyone will be interested in everything, right? So there's stuff which was about for stakers, whereas I think the focus is more on dApp developers and application hosters for this call. So yeah, worth a look. Or if there are notes that appear, if you are running an application, you're concerned about how the merge will affect that, then definitely have a look at it at 2x speed and see what pings you.
I'll definitely plan to give it a back listen. Also, dank sharding, I plan to check out. That was you just finised that, right?
Yeah, I'd wait for the explainers before you get spend too much brain power on it.
Liberosis, Polonia. I really those are explainers that I can pick up, and these are great because they're just above my level, and so that I can translate it then to people who are struggling to get to that level. ETH Denver looks really exciting.
Yeah, you going, dude?
It's complicated. I hope so. I don't know. My family is still very COVID conscious, COVID aware, and our 3-year-old hasn't been exposed and hasn't been vaccinated. So we have an ongoing debate about like the risk and is it worth, the expense, not, the risk expense, not the monetary expense. But I'm sort of hoping to drop in maybe for a few hours, but we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I am not there, but very much planning to be at DevConnect in Amsterdam in April. So I am booked and looking forward to it.
So I have already committed not to go to Amsterdam, but I know EthStaker is doing a ton there. And so EthStaker is just putting a ton of great stuff together. So I hope everyone can make it to that. I think I'll be attending virtually, but we're just not ready for international travel yet, given the age of our son and given COVID. So maybe in a year or two.
Yeah, totally get it. Yeah, I think we've pretty much done the important news. So
I found this amusing.
Yeah,
So I was going to save. Yeah, I was going to save the ETH1 discussion, or the language discussion for the end. But it's so funny. People judge so much about this content based on that name, and I'm like, come on. Listen to it, evaluate the content, and you decide. But
yeah, our documentation team, Cheeky So-and-so, has asked me to review their documentation change and approve it on GitHub before renaming ETH1 to ETH2 through
sounds like a setup.
ETH1 and ETH2 throughout. So yes, indeed.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing if I figure out how to use. All right, I had fun. That's it. I think this has potential to go on. I hope that everyone learns as much from this as I do. You're such a great wealth of information.
Well, thanks, Liz. Appreciate it. It's fun to talk it through. Definitely different format for me than writing this thing, which is its own special kind of torture. But this is much more fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna see if I can stop